Alright, here's a quick review over Chapter 13 lecture notes. It is over the skeletal system, the muscular system, and your chapter objectives, what you should be able to take away from this chapter for the exam is what are the three types of muscle tissue, what are the functions of the muscular system, how are muscles named, not the actual names of muscles, but just what is the thought process behind naming muscles. How are skeletal muscles and muscle fibers structured? How do skeletal muscles contract? How do skeletal muscle cells acquire ATP for contraction? What is rigor mortis? And then how do both the skeletal and muscular systems help maintain homeostasis? Hopefully what you've come to recognize really, and maybe already know, is that the skeletal and muscular system go hand in hand. They're really like, peanut butter and jelly when it comes to how the two function and how they function with each other to make the other one look like it's working. So the three types of muscle tissues are skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. And you had a bit of a review of all of this on the two crash course videos on the muscular system. But you can see how the three different types of muscle tissues look different. And that is simply because, or what that really comes to mean, is that they all have specific functions within the body, and they do very different activities. Review these little bullet points of information, and you should be set on what each type of muscle tissue does and how they function within the body. Alright, so 5 functions of the muscles. Support the body by allowing us to stay upright, allow for movement by attaching to the skeleton, help maintain a constant body temperature, assist in movement within the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic vessels, also really to allow for all movement. What you might think about is the GI tract, which was pictured on the previous slide for the smooth muscle, and then also to protect internal organs and stabilize joints. So again, if you remember the 5 functions of the skeletal system, you'll see that there is a fair amount of overlap there. So how are skeletal muscles attached? They're going to be attached through a tendon, and you see a picture of that here. And you may not see very many of these in real life. In terms of human tendons, hopefully you never see your own, because that means you have a pretty deep wound. But you can observe these in meat that you eat, whether it's chicken, whether it is different cuts of beef. You can see these tendons, and it's a shiny, very tough piece of connective tissue. And it has to be tough because it connects to the bone. It holds the end of the muscle group here and allows both the bone and the muscle to function coordinately. Alright, and there's also what's called the origin, the attachment of muscle on a stationary bone, and then insertion, attachment of a muscle on a bone that moves. And it's kind of hard to think about these two as separate ways, but with the insertion, if you're talking about a bone that moves, such as the bones in the legs or the hands, the feet, the arms, there's going to be multiple muscles that allow for that movement. So they're going to attach at different places, meaning they're going to insert into a different location on the bone. And that insertion simply just looks like this, but this would be the location of the insertion here, versus another muscle group might come underneath and attach at the end of that bone. Now, how do skeletal muscles work? Well, they're going to work in pairs. And you've got a couple of terms to think about, and that is antagonistic and synergistic. So antagonistic is going to be muscles that work in opposite pairs. One is going to be basically working against each other. And then synergistic, muscles working in groups for a common action. And you can see different examples on the right there. But one muscle does most of the work. And if that's the case, then that muscle is called the agonist, or prime mover. And while the prime mover is working, other muscles called synergists function as well. And the synergist assists the agonist and makes its action more effective. So, when muscles contract, hopefully you can get the picture in your mind that they shorten during that process. And so muscles can only pull, they can't push. So if you relax your muscle, it lengthens, but that doesn't give you any force. So it's not pushing against anything. So what this means is that muscles work in opposite pairs. One muscle is going to pull while one muscle relaxes. The muscle that acts opposite to the prime mover is called the antagonist. And if you are in the lab, you will get a good introduction to this process as I went through the lab. It is good to have the definitions of antagonistic, agonist, synergist written out and next to you so that you can go through that process.